We are joined by Camilla and Gyles. Morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
young
really
people.
shocking.
Oh,
I know,
really shocking.
Such an effervescent guy as well.
Yeah.
You know, I only met him a couple of times, but every time I saw him, he'd always bring this lovely
And had achieved
light
so much.
energy.
So
Yeah, in
much.
such a short period of time.
Very
Very
With
sad.
a real passion, which is fantastic.
And not many people have that sort of
Yeah.
passion for something like that.
Yeah.
Good to see it. I know, incredibly sad. Let's talk about the news now, shall we, and the headlines here. I'm going to show you a clip, first of all. This was on Piers' show, actually, his show Uncensored, and he was talking to Rubiales, who was obviously this World Cup kiss scandal, the Spanish FA boss. This is where he announced his resignation. Let's have a little look.
About my resignation, yes, I'm going to do.
You're going to resign?
Yeah, I'm going to. Yes, because I cannot continue my work.
And, of course, he says that, but it still hasn't, as yet, apologised for it.
It's a really weird one, this, because you look at it and you're like, what are you doing? It's so odd. His behaviour is odd. And then you think, in this kind of world of cancel culture, is it a big enough crime for this guy's career to be over? This is the question one has to answer. I mean, he behaved inappropriately. The player herself said it wasn't a solicited kiss. It was unprovoked, unwanted and unmerited. You then have to flip sides and say, well, if this had happened to a male player, what would the reaction have been? Because I do think that female athletes are treated a little differently to male athletes. They're asked, you know, sometimes completely spurious and patronising questions. You know, there's a tennis player that's been asked to give a twirl. You know, she's just won a championship. Why are people asking girls these questions on courts or on pitches or anything? But at the same time, I mean, he's giving a testimony there to Piers Morgan that his life has basically been destroyed by it.
But he's triggered something in Spain. I have Spanish friends, and they say this has become bigger than the story. Some people are saying it was the exuberance of the day. If you saw him, he was actually hugging and kissing almost everybody. This one was exceptional, and it was certainly offensive, and it should not have happened. But what's happened in Spain is it began as this issue, but it's spilt over into something where people are thinking, is this our national Me Too moment? And it's been a wake-up call from the young people who are my children's friends' generation who say, actually, this has made Spanish women think this sort of thing has been tolerated for too long in our country.
Yeah.
And this is the moment. Well, so he, as it were, is just started this thing.
With that in mind, do you think it's as much his reaction afterwards? Like he just
Well, he
could have
doubled down,
apologised straight
didn't he?
away. Exactly. He's doubled down at every single crossroads he's come to.
I'm not going anywhere. And it was like, oh, God, you're being complete... You know, you've closed your ears to the criticism around you. There's also concerns, I think, generally about the Spanish football scene, particularly for young women and nefarious alleged behaviour by other coaches and things like that. Maybe it is their meeting.
He's listened to his family. He first of all listened to his mother, who you may remember barricaded herself in her church for the sake of her beloved son. But then he now says he has spoken to his father and to his daughters, and they have clearly persuaded him. I mean, that's what he is saying.
Got to feel for his daughters and all of that.
That's just awful.
I mean, has he just made it worse for himself by dragging it all out?
I think probably, and it's clearly not ending here because Jenny Hermoso is a Spanish footballer embroiled in all of this. She said that she's filed a sexual assault complaint. If found guilty, Rubiales could face a fine or prison sentence of 1 to 4 years.
It's such a shame because I watched the game and it was so exciting.
It was great,
wasn't it?
It was really thrilling on every side. And at the end, you thought this actually has been a sea change for women's football. It's now totally accepted. It's mainstream. And now we have all this going on.
Although I suppose you could say we've come on because it has caused this outrage. And actually, if that had happened 20 years ago, well, let's be honest, if it happened 20 years ago, we wouldn't have been watching that football match on primetime television. So we've come on leaps and bounds. And in a way, obviously, as a member of the sisterhood, you know, you are championing the people that are saying, actually, this isn't acceptable.
Yeah,
sort
sure.
of behaviour is
It
just
could be a
not
sea
right on the
change for
public
women in Spain.
stage. It's just, it was really odd.
Let's move on. It's kind of... The more I find out about the story, the stranger it reads, to be honest. The Daniel Khalif has obviously been caught, charged over the prison escape. After a 4-day search, he was arrested in northwest London on Saturday morning. But the strangest thing for me in the story is that if he genuinely wanted to go on the run, he would either try and leave the country or be somewhere less populous than Chiswick. So he basically went home to his, to his area. But I think he was arrested on the towpath. He was laughed as he was apprehended in Northolt. A plainclothes police officer pulled him from his bicycle. But the whole thing just seems quite odd to me.
One of my grandchildren has solved it. One of my grandchildren says, you've got to remember, Grandpa, this man is innocent. He is being charged. He is going to go for trial, but at the moment, it's all alleged against him.
Yep.
He is there, as it were, on remand, waiting trial. So the grandchild thinks the man is totally innocent. He knows he's innocent. He knows he's going to be found not guilty. He wants to have a career afterwards. He's good-looking. He was in the army. He's right fit, and he's creating his movie career. And this is a movie escape, and he wanted to be caught. I'm just offering that as a theory.
Really?
Your grandchildren are very strategic and
Was it?
very
So
impressive.
And he got people in the prison to help him, and with the things. Because how did he get those chains
How
on
did
the
he get the
exactly?
clips to sort of clip onto the underside of the lorry? But people are saying, obviously, he had a bike. I think he had a plastic bag full of... He'd obviously changed his clothes.
He had a
So
Waitrose call bag.
Yes.
It's the most middle-class move and escaping.
People on the other side. In fact, I must count all my grandchildren's bicycles. Are they
you
involved in
must.
this? I mean, obviously, it is a serious issue.
Although get away by bicycle, unless you're Chris Hoy, it's never going to work out well, is it? Also, I think it's quite intriguing, the notion of no one being able to hide, really.
Yeah.
You know, when you watch Celebrity Hunted, as me and my kids do, and you think to yourself, actually, with the dawn of CCTV, we now have got lots of stories in the papers today, even about facial recognition. You use a bank card, you pick up a phone, even if it's a burner phone, something.
Yeah.
How do you disappear in 2023?
Yeah.
I don't think you
That's
can.
my point. I mean, what do I know?
No.
But it seems kind of strange that he would go to a populous part of northwest London if really he didn't
Try and blend in.
want to be caught, right? You know, I mean, it's kind of odd.
He was meant to be in Richmond Park at one point. I was like, oh, heat sensors have picked up movement. It's like, there's 1,000 deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they've caught him, and I'm sure that's not the end of this story. I feel like there's going to be bits we'll be talking about this.
This one will run and run, but not him.
Well, I tell you what, the story I want to talk about is the apple doesn't fall far from the tree on the old strategic thinking over there with Gyles's grandchildren.
Yeah, exactly. We've got the movie rights.
So we TCHQ before we know it, Giles.
This is a horrible story. I think if anybody had seen this footage of this poor 11-year-old girl who was attacked in Birmingham over the weekend, Sola Braverman, the Home Secretary, is pushing for a ban on American XL bully dogs. 2 men intervened, but they were also bitten and left with injuries on their shoulders and arms. These types of dogs have been linked to 9 deaths since 2011. Sola Braverman wrote on her social media, "This is appalling. The American XL bully is a clear and lethal danger to our communities, particularly to children."
This is horrifying. I like just watching it, because obviously we hear a lot, we write a lot about dog attacks. To actually see the ferocity with which this dog is pursuing these people is just horrifying. I mean, the 11-year-old was lucky to escape that, frankly, and we've read devastating stories about fatalities, often involving children. This particular breed of dog, I'm not a dog expert, I'm a cat person. However, I have read quite a lot about this XL bully, and at the end of the day, these dogs it's in their DNA to attack. And
I don't know how I feel about it. So I saw a thing on the news this morning with a child with one of these dogs on a lead walking through, High Street, just a loving family dog. The RSPCA maintains owners are responsible for training their dogs, quote unquote. We need to remember how there's no single breed or type of dog that's aggressive and no single breed or type that's safe. All dogs are individuals. My issue with something like this is is this a political headline by banning a certain type of dog rather than regulation on how people treat their dogs and how people train their dogs?
I think there is some evidence to suggest that this particular breed can be aggressive. I'm sorry, I think it could be in their DNA. And I think from a practical level, would you be happy for your little toddler to be near a dog like that?
The point
Let
Dermot
off the
is
leash.
making is that many dogs can be aggressive, and actually we're talking about the owners and the way they train and look after their dogs, and it's usually a human problem rather than a canine problem. That's what
But
you're
it's not
suggesting.
the canine's fault. If the canine's DNA is that it is aggressive and is an attack dog, and that's just in its breeding from years and years and years previously, and indeed there's been some crossbreeding going on, we can't really blame the dog. The dog is behaving as dogs do.
But doesn't that what you've just said, because this breed isn't actually recognised by the Kennel Club, it's actually quite hard to define. So what are you actually banning? Because if it hasn't got a specific definition?
That is the problem. This is not, according to the Kennel Club, a specific breed, and you could have dogs that have part of this in their gene makeup and could still be liable to do it. So it's sort of saying we will ban XL dogs or LX dogs, which is it? XL. It's one thing to say, but still it'll go on, particularly if people are not keeping guard of their dogs.
No, sure.
It's a people problem, basically.
Yeah.
No, I agree. We've got some royal stories now. Camilla, this one's for you. Actually, there were some quite nice stories this weekend.
Giggly photos.
Giggly and some bit of fun. Let's start with Prince Harry, first of all. He launched the 2023 Invictus Games in Germany this weekend. He went to a German TV studio to take part in a penalty shootout. He failed to hit any of the targets.
Oh, no.
He gave a really good go. The pressure on him there.
Oh, my God.
To be fair, that is quite hard.
That is hard. It's not an open goal, is it?
I mean, no, to be fair to him.
He was going head-to-head against
No, I think
German competition.
this was deliberate. This was Anglo-German friendship required that he did not succeed.
Yeah.
He knew that the first state visit made by his father was to Germany.
Yeah.
And as part and parcel of that, he agreed to miss the goal each time. But it's been a joy to see him this weekend because he seemed happy positive, in his element, doing his thing. The Invictus Games is exhilarating and moving to watch.
Yeah.
So well done, Harry, on all counts.
Yeah, a big tick.
Also, another royal story, surprise appearance from Prince William and Kate, the Princess Royal, on Mike Tyndall's rugby podcast over the weekend, speaking on the good, the bad and the rugby. They shared some anecdotes about their love of the sport and also about their love of beer pong, which I've had a couple of terrible nights out with.
I think I've been at a few of
Who
those.
knew Kate playing beer pong? We need to see it.
I think we have a clip, yeah, take a look.
Not of the beer pong.
Shame.
I'm not going to say you're uber competitive. Where? I've seen that. I've seen her play. I've seen her play beer pong. Really? That's coming out.
It's nice seeing them laughing and
they get on
normal
really well with Mike and Zara because William is so close in age to Zara that they kind of obviously grew up together and they do have a giggle and they do, play games together. I remember writing a story about back at somebody's birthday party and they were playing human table football and Mike Tyndall and William particularly was getting very competitive. And actually, William and Kate, when they're together in a sporting arena, are often kind of vying off each other because she's very sporty and so is he. So it's quite nice to see them in that environment. I think it makes them a bit more real. Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't want to play beer pong with Mike Tyndall, would you? I mean,
You'd definitely win.
That's a fellow with a hearty constitution.
Yeah, you'd wake up with a headache after that, wouldn't you?
Although I'd like to be on Giles's team.
Have you ever played beer pong, Giles?
Have I played? I was in Cardiff last night for the Fiji versus Wales. We were following in Cardiff. We were playing nothing but beer pong. Well, there was beer available and a bit of a pong. That's all I can tell you.
Before or after you delivered your one-man show? I'd like to see that after a game of beer pong.
Yes, it was quite an exhilarating evening, but a very close match. And they're quite rough, these rugby players.
Great game.
Mike Tyndall looks the part, doesn't he?
He does too.